Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into the incredibly dynamic, yet often totally invisible framework that keeps our modern workplaces running smoothly. Whether you're clocking into a busy hospital, coding away at a tech startup, or managing a massive logistics hub, there is this complex web of relationships holding the entire operation together. So we're going to explore exactly how we've moved from an era of deep, gritty workplace conflict into this modern age of strategic collaboration. But let's just start with a hard truth, right? What actually happens when management and employees fundamentally disagree? It's pretty much the scenario every organization dreads. But honestly, it's an inevitable part of human enterprise. Whenever you have groups of people working together, you are going to get friction. Disagreements over money, physical safety, who gets a promotion, or job security, those aren't just possibilities, they're guarantees. And how a company handles that friction, well, that's literally the difference between thriving and completely falling apart. To really unpack this, we've got a clear roadmap for this explainer. We'll look at the heart of the workplace, the four key players in this ecosystem, the anatomy of a dispute, how we resolve conflicts peacefully, and finally, the evolution of modern HR. All right, diving right into section 1, the heart of the workplace and what keeps the gears turning. Because let's be real, absolutely no organization succeeds without the active cooperation of its workforce.
Now, historically, when you hear the phrase industrial relations, you might instantly picture, black and white photos of 1920s factories, loud assembly lines, and angry picket lines. But today, it's really the process of maintaining healthy, cooperative relationships between management and employees to achieve both the organization's goals and employee welfare. And this applies just as much to an IT company or a university as it does to a manufacturing plant. It's really all about how we work together today.
And good industrial relations aren't just some nice-to-have HR buzzword. They are an absolute economic necessity. Think about it. When you have industrial peace, productivity naturally shoots up. You drastically reduce employee turnover because, well, people actually want to stay where relationships are fair and respectful. Plus, mutual trust is strengthened through total transparency. On the flip side of that, poor relations lead directly to absenteeism, strikes, low productivity, and massive financial losses. So the health of these relationships literally dictates the financial health of the whole organization.
Moving on to section 2, the four key players, the ecosystem of the workplace.
You can kind of think of this as an interconnected ecosystem where four distinct parties are constantly balancing each other out. First, you have employers who allocate the resources and manage the operations. Then employees, who bring their skills and labor to the table in exchange for fair compensation and safety. Next are trade unions, acting as the collective voice to fiercely protect and promote worker interests. And sitting right across all of this is the government, acting as the lawmaker, the regulator, and the ultimate protector of the public interest. So healthy industrial relations, it requires a very delicate, continuous balancing act among all four of these distinct players. Which brings us to section 3. Anatomy of a dispute, or what happens when the system breaks down. So, when those four key players fall out of alignment, we get an industrial dispute. We all generally know what a dispute entails, but the absolutely crucial point here is the impact. When conflicts over things like working conditions, bonuses, transfers, or discipline are just left totally unresolved, they can severely cripple an organization's performance. Honestly, it's like throwing a massive wrench directly into the gears of the operation. Now, disputes are usually triggered by obvious culprits, right? Low wages, poor conditions, a total lack of communication. But technological changes are incredibly relevant right now. Just picture a logistics company introducing a whole fleet of new automated sorting machines. If management doesn't communicate exactly how this affects the current human workers, job insecurity spikes instantly. That fear breeds immediate friction, which really proves that a lot of disputes are born not out of malice, but out of proactive changes that just lack transparent communication. Here's the thing, though. Massive disputes rarely happen overnight. They almost always start super small, just a single employee grievance. Having a transparent, time-bound system to actually address these individual concerns is what prevents a minor spark from turning into a massive industrial fire. Prompt resolution builds trust, while ignoring it just completely destroys it. So let's look at how we fix this in section 4, resolving conflicts peacefully, the escalation ladder. If we look at intervention as an escalation ladder, we start at step 1, collective bargaining, where management and employees basically hash it out themselves. If that fails, we step up to conciliation, bringing in a neutral third party to just facilitate discussions. Still can't agree? We escalate to arbitration, where an independent arbitrator makes a binding decision. And finally, adjudication, where specialized labor courts actually take over. Do you notice the trend here? As you climb this ladder, the primary parties gradually lose control of the outcome, ultimately handing their fate entirely over to outside authorities. And that loss of control, that is exactly why collective bargaining is arguably the single most crucial concept in all of industrial relations. This is the structured negotiation process between management and employee representatives. The ultimate goal here is a mutually acceptable agreement. Because look, when you can successfully sit across a table and agree on wages, safety, and benefits without needing outside arbitrators or judges, you secure cooperation, you protect your autonomy, and you completely avoid the massive disruption of higher-level disputes. All right, our final section, Section 5, the modern HR evolution, moving from confrontation to collaboration. See, traditional industrial relations was heavily reactive. It was all focused on factories, strikes, and basically confronting issues only after they broke out. But today's approach is super proactive. It prioritizes employee engagement, digital grievance systems, wellness, and participative management. The modern human resources department isn't just a complaint department anymore. It's really a bridge focused on building a culture of collaborative problem solving to stop conflicts before they ever even begin. Now, just because a workplace is collaborative certainly doesn't mean it's easy, right? HR professionals are continuously adapting to entirely new realities. We aren't just dealing with the factory floor anymore. We're navigating globalization, the massive integration of automation and AI, the booming gig economy, and of course, the sudden shift to remote and hybrid work models. Managing relations when half your workforce is just a face on a screen, or when they're contracted gig workers, well, that requires entirely new rulebooks and completely new levels of empathy. So if you take only one thing away from this explainer, let it be this. Modern industrial relations are no longer just limited to resolving strikes. Today's HR managers focus on building trust and creating collaborative workplaces where conflicts are resolved through dialogue rather than confrontation. Honestly, it all comes back to trust. When you build trust, dialogue thrives, and confrontation naturally just fades away. Which leaves us with a truly fascinating challenge for the future. As AI, automation, and the gig economy fundamentally reshape the very definition of what a job even is, how will industrial relations adapt to protect the workers of tomorrow? The tools are certainly going to change, but as we've learned today, the core goal, maintaining a harmonious, cooperative, and fair workplace, will absolutely always remain the heart of human enterprise. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and keep asking the big questions.